Mr. Chairman, are you ready for me to read the meeting script?
How you doing, Kyle?
Good. How are you, Tom?
Good, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, are you ready for me to read the meeting script? Kurt, are you able to unmute yourself? All right, just give me 1 second. I'll go make sure Kurt's ready.
I got it, Kyle, I think.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know it was a 100-step process on this computer. So yes, please read the notice.
All right. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 23, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Yarmouth Water Resources Advisory Committee is being conducted via remote participation. All votes during this meeting will need to be conducted by roll call. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Public participation will be permitted by allowing members of the public to join this meeting via Zoom or via the telephone. Mr. Chairman, you can just take a roll call to enter into the meeting quorum to begin.
Okay, I have John DeLizzo.
Yeah.
Tom Roach.
Here.
Tom Barron.
Here.
Don Durkin.
Here.
Vero.
Here.
George.
Here.
Did I miss any members? Of course, I'm here. Okay, so call the meeting is open. Our first agenda item is the DHY recommendation with a possible vote. Anybody like to start the conversation on this issue?
Yeah, Kurt, I was just reading in the paper, Cape Cod Times, several articles relative to Dennis and Howard needing more time to get the word out in regards to the issues coming forward and some of the other planning issues, I believe. And I would just like to say that it just seems like that Yarmouth has done its job reaching out to the residents of Yarmouth and giving the information that we did over the past year and a half. And I think that just from that perspective, we are so far ahead of them. And that might be part of the situation that we find ourselves involved with now.
Okay, anybody else? John?
I have drafted something with the permission of the chair. I'd like to read it. It would be put forward with the idea of suggested framework that might speed the conversation today. I sense from our last meeting that we're pretty much all on the same page. It'll take me about a minute to read it, with your permission.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. The Town of Yarmouth Water Resources Advisory Committee recommends to the Town of Yarmouth Board of Selectmen endorsing the construction of a wastewater collection system and treatment plant as soon as possible. The priorities using the following priorities. One, the Town of Yarmouth participate as a member of the DHY consortium. Two, should Dennis or Harwich not participate in the DHY agreement, then with the remaining town. Three, should Dennis and Harwich not participate at all, the Town of Yarmouth should build its own wastewater treatment plant. Four, and this is the last piece, should the plan to participate with Dennis and/or Harwich to build a wastewater treatment plant not result in a legally binding agreement, By the date, the town of Yarmouth must agree to participate in the Commonwealth of Mass Route 28 rebuilding program for construction of a sewer line on Route 28. The town of Yarmouth should then proceed independently to build both a collection system and a wastewater treatment plant. Now that's rough language, and recognizing it would need massaging and tweaking before it went to print, but I put it forward as a item for conversation today.
Personally, I agree with what you just said. It's kind of my scenario of the best way to proceed forward. Again, we're just two people. I'd like to hear from the rest of the committee on their thoughts. I think the catch would be, we need to find out what that date is and make it, set that as the drop dead date that we have to do one thing or the other, which would lead us to, in my opinion, a fall town meeting to take action of whatever sort it is. George, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I fully agree with what John said. I just would like to make more general fourth item. As I recall our conversation last time, we were more concerned about the financial impact of any delay. So can we just change that to not be specifically the project along, State Highway 28, but rather anything that would make the Dennis Harwich Yarmouth approach more expensive than alternatives that are available to us, some wording to that effect. Make it turn on the financial aspect, not specifically a project. That's all I'm suggesting. But I fully support what John had said.
Okay. Anybody else in the committee have a comment or an opinion? Mr. Durkin?
I'm in accordance with what John has said.
Okay, Spiro, you said to speak?
Yes, I think it's just a tad too comprehensive. You kind of lost me at DHY. I'd like to give the selectmen the authority to proceed as they see fit. Listening to their last couple of meetings, it looks like they want to proceed with DHY by putting it on the town warrant. I think a statement that supports that sentiment and gets them to do that gets us most of the way there. Identifying Plan B, C, and Plan D is really kind of redundant at that point.
Yeah.
So I'd rather give them a much cleaner motion to work with next Tuesday, or tomorrow, I guess, is when they're meeting.
Tom Barron, I see your hand up.
Yes, I agree with John and the approach, but I do favor what Spiro just said, that keep it simple, keep it as an endorsement of the fact that we need a sewer system, keep it tight to that subject and that subject alone. The idea of giving options that John had shown is good, because we know we've all been participating in the discussion. But I think Spiro's comments are more direct, and I think that's what we should be doing. We should have a simple statement from the committee endorsing the need and the timely construction of the sewer program.
I agree as well, Mr. Chairman. Keep it plain and simple.
Okay. I still agree with John, because I know how the selectmen work. They're looking for recommendation from us. I'm fine if the committee would like to make a strong number one recommendation. I just think they will ask, what does the committee think about the other options? That's all. So again, I'm just one person in the committee. Whatever you all think is the best way to go is fine with me. So if somebody would like to make a motion one way or the other, maybe we can narrow down the discussion and have a vote on that.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to note that Lee Rowley just arrived at the meeting.
I see that. Thank you. Lee, have you listened to any of what just happened?
No, I haven't heard.
Okay. So John laid out like a four-step option with DHY first, and the committee seems to be inclined to narrow the focus of our recommendation to that one issue, rather than look at the dentist, say a YD or YH or Yarmouth alone option. It appears that the committee is making a recommendation to selectmen just on the DHY option as soon as possible.
Okay, question though, are we making a recommendation to put the DHY as an article?
We, yes, that's one of the
Sure.
recommendation possibilities. We haven't taken a formal vote, but sounds like what the sense of the committee is. So again, we don't have a formal motion on that by itself, but that's where our discussion is.
All right.
If you'd like to offer your 2 cents worth on that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, but as a backup, I was thinking that maybe the selectmen, we can make a recommendation that the selectmen have a discussion with the town of Dennis to look at the alternative of the Dennis Yarmouth sort of fashion. I mean, suppose we get to the fall and Harwich begs out or votes off or whatever. We should have in our back pocket an agreement for just Dennis and Yarmouth. Now, what I'm suggesting is just for the selectmen to have a discussion with Dennis on the subject, and if they see fit, they could have the attorneys fashion a separate agreement just with Dennis. And I'm not trying to drive a wedge between us and Harwich, but what if we get to the fall and we're in that position where Harwich is not coming on board?
Well, I think that's the whole problem with the process right now, is they're so wishy-washy, if you will, about whether they're going to be there or not. I mean, when you ask a question about how about fall, if the answer is, well, we don't usually have a fall town meeting, to me that's the wrong answer. Their answer should be, we don't normally have a fall town meeting, but we will do the best we can to prepare for it. But after what's been about a 4-year process, and I can only speak for myself, and I know I'm not alone, I've put in more hours into this than I can ever count. And it seems a shame that we're right here at the finish line and people decide to put their toe and can't seem to get over the line.
Lee, I think we're looking at the wrong problem. The wrong problem is that Dennis has stepped back for another 6 months,
Right.
and they're not sure when they're going to go forward. So we don't necessarily have an issue with going forward with Dennis alone. If Harwich bails out, we have a problem with Dennis dragging their feet. So if they're not prepared in the fall to join us, then we don't have a choice but to go alone.
Right.
I think.
But I honestly think that there needs to be more discussion with the selectmen and to find out what their true intention is. I mean, if they intend to go on a regional basis, then that's the way they should be talking, They need a little extra time to educate their citizens. But I just think that's it's ridiculous. I mean, so much time has gone by, so many articles in the paper, so much discussion. It's like Kurt said, and I know Kurt has gone to every one of these DHY meetings, and it's so frustrating. And I don't know, is it the money? Or, these guys got cold feet, sounds like.
Yeah, I think the problem with Harwich is they had a couple of results that didn't go the way they wanted to in terms of some of the original, the first bids of what the project they're doing now. And they need to get past that and figure out what they want to do for the future. Tom Rhodes, did you have your hand up?
No, I didn't, but I think I agree with Spiro's comments. I think that again, referring to the news articles in the paper, it just seems like they're gun shy, more so Harwich. And they want to spend more time educating their residents. So what does that tell you? They're apprehensive about the vote going forward. And I think there might be a piece of that relative to Dennis as well. Then I don't think they're prepared as well as Yarmouth is. And I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah, okay. Tom Barron has hand up next. I see you, John. I'll call on you next.
Yeah, the idea, well, the agreement between all three towns was that the spring town meeting was going to be the point where the decision was going to be rendered by each of the towns at their town meeting. I think that we should, that our recommendation to the selectmen, that we continue to move in that direction, that our recommendation as a committee, we are the supposedly the eyes and ears of the town for this issue, and and the selectmen are depending on us to give our guidance to them. They've got to make the final decision, but we need to put a strong statement forward. In deference to Lee's point, I do think that a second element to just a basic recommendation would be to encourage the selectmen to reach out to both the other towns and try to emphasize the need to for concurrence on this as soon as possible. We can't force them. We can't force them to vote if they don't want to vote, but we should at least be open to their issues as well.
Okay. Yeah, and remember, one of the agreements at the DHY level is that each town's board of selectmen would take a vote to recommend DHY by the end of the year. And Howard seemed to take that as they would recommend to put the article on the warrant, and now they've changed their mind. So I'm finding it just way too difficult to bring Howard along. I know somebody made mention of the Cape Cod Times, and there's also something on the radio. I don't put great faith in either one from a fact-based standard. So who knows how much we can believe all that. Dave Young.
Yeah, if I could just add a couple clarifying comments. This is a good discussion. There were two main reasons why Dennis delayed. One was for COVID reasons. Their town hall staff got hit very hard recently with COVID issues. So they were having trouble getting a lot of things out, and they didn't feel they could do that. But the first thing that really triggered, that was the second reason. The first reason was when Harwich decided they were not going to town meeting this spring. Dennis, who has voted the past 2 years to endorse DHY, they wanted to delay in order to be able to bring a 3-town meeting or a 3-town agreement to their town meeting. So that was really the first reason. And then the second was COVID. So those were the two main reasons. I think, they're ready to go for some agreement, whatever it may be at this point, next fall as well. They are planning to move forward this spring, from what I understand, with their preliminary design, wastewater articles. So they are moving forward. They're not delaying, similar to what you folks are doing and have been doing at your last town meetings. They've already put their cost recovery program in place. They've been doing those articles for the last year and a half, 2 years. So I guess from what I'm hearing and trying to put some timeline to this, I'm not sure moving forward with a DHY article for Yarmouth at Springtown meeting is the right approach. I'm not sure it would mean anything. Suppose Yarmouth passes it. What does it mean? We're not even sure if DHY agreement exists. today. So unless the three towns are actually bringing it together, I think that's the only time it actually has meaning and that people would actually understand what they're voting on. I think there'd just be so many questions about what was going on, what did it mean, and this and that, that, you know, I'd be concerned that people would just vote it down due to the misinformation that would be out there if Yarmouth brought a DHY agreement to a spring town meeting. So, but what I'm hearing is a lot of good discussion, and so perhaps you reframe your recommendation more or less along what John was saying, but put a little bit of a timeline to that, so that what you're really indicating to the selectmen is that you want to have a decision on the wastewater program for the town of Yarmouth at next fall's town meeting, whatever that decision may be. And then you recommend that, you know, Yarmouth and Dennis get together to decide if they could do a two-town agreement. In the meantime, Harwich is evaluating the other options they wanted to look at. And by the end of July, put that midpoint between your town meetings, there needs to be a decision made as to whether Dennis and Harwich are bringing DHY to a fall town meeting or not. And if they're not, then Yarmouth can move forward with the Yarmouth only next fall, and you have a 2-month period to sell it or whatever the time frame is. If there's a Dennis and Yarmouth agreement, you have that same period to educate the voters to why that makes sense and DHY may not exist anymore. Or if all three towns agree, which this committee has already endorsed DHY, you've done that previously. I think you've even sent a memo to the selectmen endorsing that. I know you've made presentations to them. And, you know, Yarmouth and Dennis selectmen have both made unanimous decisions to support DHY. So along John's lines, you evaluate those three options, see if they're viable, and by the end of July, a decision is made as to what's being brought to this fall's town meeting, where a decision must be made in order to stay on the timeline for the costs, you know, associated with MassDOT or cost increases. You're not going to wait till next spring is the message you're sending. So just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, the other thing, Dave, which you know, and many people may not, is that some of the dates that are in the DHY agreement at this point don't mean anything. So we have to update those to the point where everybody agrees on what the new dates of, you know, getting the commission together and all those issues that they would have to deal with.
Yeah, they can all be modified fairly easily.
Oh, I know.
They're all placeholders depending on time frame. So that's not a big issue.
But I'm just thinking, if you're voting on an agreement, try to push it at spring for DHY agreement that really, as you say, has nothing to it. It's just, it'd be more like a vote of support than anything. But that's about all.
Well, I'm just concerned that it might take a step backwards instead of, as I know everybody on this call is trying to make everything move forward, but due to the confusion and all, and, you know, I've been part of many of those meetings that the newspapers.
I'm on a meeting, Bob.
And
I'm on a meeting.
there's a lot of half-truths in there, shall we say.
Sorry, the new town administrator is taking the tour of the town hall. All right, in light of,
So,
John's hand up. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just want to put out there, I'm totally on board with, you know, changing my recommendation if it gets us to the goal that we want to get to. But I also think we have to recognize that the town of Yarmouth has a different problem than the other two towns in DHY. We have the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Route 28 rebuild train coming down the track. I don't know the date, the schedule, et cetera. But if we miss that train, we may have, you know, put a death knell on this project, at least, you know, for the 5 years and maybe longer, who knows? And I'm just concerned that we keep that that particular issue, and I'm very conscious of George's thoughts with regard to the financial picture changing. I think that's a likelihood as well. But, while we're, if you will, negotiating and working with the other two towns for the noble goal, that's all great. But, if Commonwealth of Mass were to say, well, you know what, we're moving ahead. No, I don't know that that's a realistic possibility if it's a very, very firm deadline that they're put forward. But I think it's almost crucial that we, town of Yarmouth, not the other two towns, we, town of Yarmouth, are in sync with the state on that rebuilding program. There's just way too much money involved for the town to miss the boat on that. So that was my primary concern that I had woven into what I read earlier.
Okay. Jeff, can you make a comment on the time frame where we're at today?
Certainly. Where we are today is the most recent schedule we have for what appears to be the first of the two Mass DOT projects we're coordinating with, which is the Bass River Bridge and Route 28 at North Main Street, Old Main Street intersection. Those two projects are being joined. The most recent schedule we have from just 2 weeks ago was that the 75% design plans are due early in 2022. I think it's February, something like that. And we need time. We need to give CDM Smith time to put those design plans together and incorporate them in that 75% design plan. If we miss that window, that's the milestone where the utilities need to be incorporated in the plan. So it's their train is moving. We are alongside them now. We need to join those together early next year, and we need to also give CDM Smith some time in which to put that information together. That stuff doesn't get designed and incorporated in plans overnight. So that's really where we are timeframe wise. I know it sounds like a long ways off, but in the scale of this type of project, it's not.
And what about the west end of 28?
That looks like it might be a year behind at this point, that other project. Certainly that's something we need to be aware of as well. The schedule on that one is a little less clear. They have shared a schedule with us, but it looks like that might be changing slightly. But we still need to make sure we're updating those plans as well. What we have to our benefit, to the benefit of the town of Yarmouth, is that side does have 90% design plans that were developed back in 2010. So that already is a little further along. It does need to be updated, of course. I'm sure David Dunn would point that out. It needs to be looked at again, but we are further along in that section, and it is slightly behind in the schedule of the two projects.
Okay. Lee, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, Kurt, I just wanted to say one thing that, I think Yarmouth has always been committed with the DHY in a lot of respects. And that should be our first priority, but we should have a plan B and a plan C. And what I'm saying is if we don't put the article on because that would create some confusion according to what David's saying. I understand that. It seems to me you could build a sewer system in 28. We can stay with that schedule no matter which way we go. It just means that which way are we gonna pump all this sewage to? Is it gonna be to Dennis, or is it gonna be to our site location as Plan C? But what I'm saying is we should be in a position, if Dennis is firmly committed to DHY and Harwich doesn't come along with it, our plan B should be to have an agreement all ready to go. And that's not hard to do, in such a way that we can go with just Dennis and us if that's what happens. I mean, come fall, if Harwich falls out of the picture, we need a plan B. And the plan B is either going to be with Dennis, or plan C is going to be do it alone. And I think do it alone should be the last option. And I just think that we should be prepared. And we should let them know, we should let Harwich know in a nice way that, okay, if you don't want to be in the picture, we'll just do it with Dennis.
Can I chime in here?
Tom Durkin was waiting.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff, very much. I hear a date of February 2022. Pipes should go in the ground at Route 28. What about across the Parker River, Jeff? What's the date on that for pipes in the ground?
Well, let me just back up for a moment. The date I gave was the 75% stage of the design plans, not necessarily.
Okay, all right.
But with that said, there is a section between the Parkers River Bridge and the westernmost project limits of the other project, the Bass River Bridge project, if you will, that's going to have to be a Yarmouth permitted project from Mass DOT. There's no anticipated road project that Mass DOT has for that stretch of road at this time. If they develop one, then we can incorporate our project with theirs. But at this point, it looks like it would be just a simple water and wastewater installation project that we would do on our own procurement and just through a permit with Mass DOT.
And that includes going across the Parker River.
That would include whatever connection across the Parker River there needs to be. That's correct.
Can you give us a date for that, Jeff?
We have more flexibility in that because we still need to develop the plans on our side, but because we're not looking to incorporate it in a project that Mass DOT is doing paving or sidewalk or road reconstruction in that point, we have a little bit more flexibility. It's got to fit within our overall plan for bringing the collection system online, but we have more flexibility there.
So we don't have a date.
We don't have a date.
We don't have a cutoff. No. Okay.
Not at this time. We do need to make some decisions and incorporate the plans, but we don't have a specific drop dead date for that section.
Wasn't the Parkers River Bridge engineered for this anyways?
The Parkers River Bridge was anticipated to have a force main associated with it. But at this point, there's still some design considerations that need to be made. I think David Young at our last meeting mentioned, is that pump station that's just to the west of the Parkers River Bridge the main pump station for our collection system? Or is it simply a smaller pump station that just kind of is a part of the chain of moving the waste along before it gets to a main pump station that then pumps it over to Dennis? So there are some greater pump station design considerations that are needed here beyond just the pipes in the road or the size of force mains and things of that nature.
Okay. Spiro, I know you've been waiting a while. Sorry.
I think we should, we should try to put ourselves in Dennis's shoes. I spent more years going to their finance committee and some selectmen's meetings than I do the town of Yarmouth. And I came to understand that they've built a very strong culture against borrowing money. They don't like debt. And when they do take on debt, they create a parallel track of free cash to pay it off early. That's just the way they are. If I was sitting on the Dennis side today, I'd be saying, what's my plan B? I know no matter what, there's going to be a plant up on Theophilus Smith Road, whether it's with Yarmouth and Harwich, whether it's just with Yarmouth or just with Harwich. There's going to be a plant there. So their time urgency is less than ours. They can sit back another 6 months and say, we know where this plant's going. We're going to plan the same plan, even if Yarmouth has to change theirs to accommodate us. I think their plan B is whether they build a big plant for 2 or more partners or whether they just build a plant for themselves and Harwich. They know they're going to get Harwich. Harwich has nowhere else to go. So they're going to get some sort of discount for building a plant that includes Harwich. I don't think they care if Harwich signs on to the partnership or not. We're going to get their septic. They have no choice. So we need to move ahead and put it squarely on Dennis to join the partnership in the fall, or there is no partnership. That's just how I think the selectmen are coming down on it as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think whatever happens has to happen by fall. And, you know, somebody made the comment that the two boards of selectmen should be speaking, and I would hope that's already in the works, but I don't know.
I think Dave's right that they're going to pass it, the partnership, in the fall. We're just making sure that we're not left holding the bag or being left at the altar if in case they don't. That's all.
Well, yeah, that's how I look at it is, you know, because there was a comment made on the radio about, oh, they're already fighting and they haven't even started building the system yet. And I don't see it that way. I think we're just protecting our options. That's all we're doing right now. Tom Roach, did you start to say something?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? So do we have a motion that somebody will second to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen? Because it doesn't sound like anybody ever seconded John's original plan.
I could reread it if you like.
I'm trying to get, well, the sense of the committee just doesn't, it seems like we're split on the making the four recommendations versus just making one recommendation to stick with DHY. And the worst case, well, probably best case is don't try to do it this spring, do it in the fall.
He can wait.
So what's the committee's pleasure? Tom Barron.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the selectmen that we strongly endorse the town to move ahead with its overall sewage plan, recognizing that there are still issues that have to be resolved between Dennis and Harwich, but that that we have as Dave had said, a decision, a strong decision to be rendered in the middle of the summer with a vote, a final vote in the fall town meeting. There may be other words to go with that, but that's the essence of it. A strong recommendation, recognizing that others have some inputs into it, but that our recommendation up front is a strong one, that we proceed as expeditiously as we can.
Okay, anybody second? Anybody have a different motion? John?
Well, I've shortened mine a little bit. I don't want to take the time of the committee, but if I'll make it as a motion, and doesn't pass, that'll guide us we have to go elsewhere. The Town of Yarmouth Water Resources Advisory Committee recommends to the Town of Yarmouth Board of Selectmen construction of a wastewater collection system and treatment plant as soon as possible. Following priorities below. 1, the Town of Yarmouth do so as a member of the DHY consortium. 2, should Dennis or Harwich not participate in the DHY, then with the remaining town. 3, should the plan to participate with Dennis and or Harwich to build a wastewater treatment plant not result in a legally binding agreement, by the date the Town of Yarmouth must agree to participate in the Commonwealth of Mass Route 28 rebuilding program for construction of a sewer line on Route 28. The Town of Yarmouth should then proceed independently, rebuild both a collection system and a wastewater treatment plant. So I have the initial paragraph and then 3 sub.
You know what? I'm going to second it because it sounds like we're going to be here all night. And I really would like to have a motion that we can work from. You know, I know nobody wants long meetings, so. There's the motion and I seconded it. Do we have any discussion at that level of that motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Dave. Just to help clarify, I believe the selectmen were asking the Water Resource Advisory Committee whether to put on the DHY article this spring. So I'm not sure I heard that in John's motion, whether that was implied by saying move forward as fast as you can or what, but I would be clear on that one item.
Okay, John, do you think that we should modify the motion to say by the fall town meeting?
I'll take that as a friendly amendment, sure.
Okay. And I'll second that then, because again, I think if we try to, as much as I would love to do something in the spring, I just think it has its own headaches if we try to pass something all by ourselves. That
Yeah, exactly.
it's going to be a problem renegotiating with the other towns. So if nobody has any comments, I will take a roll call vote on that. John? Tom Roach.
Yes.
Tom Barron.
Yes.
George Perkins.
Aye.
Tom Durkin.
Yes, with significant reservations.
Yeah, I agree with you, but we need to do something. Spiro
No,
and Lee.
Lee, you're muted.
You muted, Lee.
I agree, but I think we should include in the body of the letter, doesn't necessarily be included in the motion, that we worked hard to discuss with Dennis to confirm that they are working in that direction.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if that needs to be part of the motion, but I will make that point to the Board of Selectmen myself. And as I get more contact info for people in Dennis, I will reach out to them myself and see if what we hear and read is really what's going on. I tend to agree with what Dave said, because it was spoken at a couple of our meetings that the COVID really severely affected Town Hall and Dennis, and a lot of people in Town Hall didn't have a great ability to work remotely like most of our employees here have in this town hall. So I think it, severely handicapped them as far as getting ready for spring. And as Dave said, they're still making moves to keep things rolling in other ways. So I think we can make that statement to the selectmen that, we need to encourage Dennis to keep moving, and hopefully the selectmen, the boards between the two of them will have a clear communication on that.
Okay.
Okay, so Kyle, you understand what that is? Or would you like John to send you a copy of it?
It would probably be helpful if John could send me a copy, but I got it.
Okay, very good.
I'll
All right, so we're on to the
Yeah,
debt.
thank you, John.
We're on to the debt service plan discussion. I don't see Ed, but he might be here. Oh yeah, I see Ed, I'm sorry. Does there anybody have any questions over what was presented on this cost recovery? Do we want to endorse the plan that Ed Centio has proposed to us?
I make a motion that we endorse the plan.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay, and George seconds it. Any conversation, comments on that? Vero?
just a general comment, not to indicate my support for the plan, but just so we're all sure that it is going to be out of date the day we vote on it. So as long as we know this is a guide, it's general principles. never going to come to pass exactly this way. It's always going to need adjustment, and we got to go with something. So let's start here.
Well, I agree. And as I said in the past, I think our phase one has some flexibility built into it. If we had to adjust the actual construction to meet the money, we could always do that too. Tom Barron.
Yes, from our discussion last week, that the presentation that Ed had given, I'm looking at the new spreadsheet that we received since, and I only ask in the last column, column 19, that there are negative numbers that are being displayed. And that was a point that Ed had emphasized. So as long as that last column was not negative, everything was going to be okay. But my question to Ed basically is, what has caused, what is, in his estimation, the cause of developing the negative cash at the end of column 19?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'll answer
Yep.
that question.
Please do.
It's a matter of timing. So what's happening is, if we were to pay for utilizing the stimulus funds, the amount of money for the design and engineering in the first year, we would not be spreading that debt over a 30-year period. So what we're doing is we've paid that principal off, which might have been debt, a lot sooner. And that's what caused the negative years. To Spiro's point, one way you might be able to approach it is, I sent out a memo which outlined the funding mechanism, not necessarily the numbers, because that is a good point, that these numbers are going to change several times between now and when this actually is done. So you may want to look at the funding plan, which outlined the mechanisms for how we would fund the project. And again, to the chairman's point, we can make adaptive moves to the project and the funding as we go along. But if the tenets are that we will use short-term rental money, we will use solar money from the Cape Cod Energy Park, we will use the money from the septic facility host fee, and some of the other things that were outlined, then that might be something you could vote on that would not have specific numbers, which again are going to change, because I think we need to test the betterments with actual customers. We need to test the water rate fees, and we've developed the modeling mechanism to be able to generate those estimates using our assessing system and our water database. So I think maybe the high level might be something you might want to vote on, but of course that's up to you. And I could put that on the screen if I can find it quickly, if that's helpful.
Any other questions or comments? Dave, I have a question for you. And can we get a sense of operational costs from, say, what MFN is doing or some other sewage treatment towns? Do we have a sense of that? Can we use that to base our numbers off of?
Yeah, we had provided in our most recent cost updates the phase one first year operating costs, and then the build out operating cost. So I believe, and that was shared with Ed. I'm not sure if it's been issued for the individual phases yet or not, but.
Okay. No, I was just curious as to, to develop an individual property owner's cost. I would imagine we'd need to have some guesstimate of that, which I think might be the next step, especially the large commercial users, to find out a reasonable guesstimation of what it will cost them to be part of this.
Yeah, and that was shared with, that's been shared with the town when they were looking at their betterment costs and those programs, so.
Okay.
Dave, this is Ed Santiago. Was that cost starting year one when the plant's operational? Or is that something that's going to be, at the end of life, or is that at the end of the phase? So we're going to be ramping up the addition of these folks. Are we going to hire all the staff? We're not going to have all the energy. Oh, we may have the energy. We may not have all the sludge disposal to do day one. So there should be some ramp up in some of the costs. I wouldn't think it would be all, the day we turn on the plant. That same level of cost as it would be as we hook up all of the phase one customers. That was something I was trying to get when I sent that email to you. Which
Yeah,
was,
let me go back, Ed, and look at the details. They were based off unit costs. We haven't done a detailed staffing plan for all these options. It was based off looking at the MFN budget, which has been shared with many. And then unit costs for typical treatment plants of this size and technology. And we provided the cost, I think, for phase one, but that was probably the build out for that phase one flow versus day one flow. But, you have to hire the staff that meet the staffing level for that certification plant. So whether you need 6 staff per DEP guidelines for that type of treatment plant at that certification level, they're going to be there day one, but yes, you're not going to use as many chemicals or have as much sludge disposal or have as much electricity type of thing. So I'll go back and look at some of the detail and see if there's more we can provide.
Thank you. Did anybody have anything else to ask of Ed? Does anybody have questions or concerns? Okay. So I believe we want to vote on the debt service payment plan. Did I lose that somewhere in there? Or
Hi, Parkham Bay. Call from Parkham Bay.
all right, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to call for a vote to support the cost recovery plan. John DeLizzo. Myself, aye. Tom Roach.
Aye.
Tom Barron.
Aye.
Tom Durkin. Tom, you're muted.
I gave a thumbs up.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. So Spiro
Aye.
and Lee.
Hey,
Lee, you in favor of the funding, the cost recovery?
yes, yes.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, we are at the Friends of Bass River update. Do you have anything to add today?
Yes, a couple of items. Your last meeting last week, Aaron, Vice Chair of Friends of Bass River, and I, as Chair, wrote a letter to the Dennis Select Board. I'll read it to you all briefly. To Chris Channel, 30 March 2021. Chris Flanagan, Chair, Dennis Select Board. Dear Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Friends of Bass River, we would like to express our continued commitment to the success of the DHY Community Wastewater Partnership Agreement. As stewards of Bass River, the largest estuary on Cape Cod, we firmly believe the answer to solving the nitrogen problem in Bass River will only be solved by the towns of Dennis and Yarmouth working together under the DHY agreement. This is the most sensible and economically viable way forward. We urge the Select Board to move forward with the DHY related articles at a fall town meeting. Friends of Bass River are committed to collaboration with the towns of Dennis on all matters pertaining to the river and would like to offer our assistance reaching Dennis residents, many of whom are already members of FOBR and committed to the success of this agreement. The river has historically been an asset to both towns, providing economic and recreational benefits to the community since the 1800s. The entire board of Friends of Bass River firmly believes wastewater partnership augmented by planned restoration projects, water testing, and volunteer stewardship programs will ensure the river's health and benefit to the community for years to come. So we hope that's has some impact or some help with this effort. The second item, we have coming up on the deadline to get all our paperwork in for the second phase of the SNAP funding for planning and so forth. I believe it's, Aaron, it's 142,000.
Well, actually, what we're doing is we're applying for, we received $256,000 from the EPA for the Southern New England Estuaries program. And we're actually working on our letter of intent right now for basically the second half of the restoration program, which is up in the Yarmouth Conservation Area between Crab Creek, Weir Road, and then across to Station Ave. So we are working with our 3 consulting groups, with Jeff Colby and with Kelly Grant, on moving forward with securing additional funding to actually start the restoration process here in the next, hopefully within the next 5 years, we'll have spades in the ground, which would be great. And as Bob said, we did reach out immediately after the previous meeting of the Water Resources Board to the town of Dennis, expressing our support for the DHY partnership agreement. Obviously, for us as stewards of the river, both towns need to come together. And I believe it's just an issue of communicating, what one town's decision is and what the way forward is, working together. I will say that as a Dennis resident, I have spoken to 3 selectmen, and they are, as Dave said, they are committed to this program going forward. So I do believe that the issue within the town has strictly to do with the COVID situation. I had a very long talk with Lois Andre last week, and she was expressing comments to me about what's going on in town hall. And a lot of people have been reaching out to the Chamber of Commerce because it's actually one of the few offices that has staff in it, people in the building, if you will. So she did say that they had some challenges. Excuse me. We are also working with both towns on a cleanup. As some of you are already aware, Friends of Bass River is partnering with the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce and the Dennis Chamber of Commerce, and our focus is going to be on cleaning up the river. So we will on the 17th of April be participating on cleaning up both sides of the river going forward.
For people who are interested, because I know the public's listening in this meeting, what's the best way for them to reach somebody to participate in that cleanup day?
So they can go to our Facebook page or to the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, and we have a sign up. They're doing what they've done is that they've put slots in for people to try to manage sort of the number of people in different areas. And it's very open. There's very simple ways to do it. You can go to a set location and do a cleanup. You can clean up an area on your own of your own choice within the town of Yarmouth. For the river locations, we're asking people to sign up for specific areas that we want to focus on. And there's a sign up there. It's very simple. You just fill in the space, the spot where you want to join in. And I have to say, I'm in a meeting tomorrow with Jen from the Chamber of Commerce. Again, I'm a Dennis person, but she's been great to work with, very organized. And hopefully this will be a great success for the town. And that will get some Dennis residents focused on a cleanup over here as well.
Great, thank you. Anything else from the friends?
No. Does anybody have any questions for us? I did one thing I did is I did ask that I did reach out to the town engineer in Dennis about the dredging. It came up in your last meeting. There was a question for me about it. I have not heard back from them, but as soon as I will, I'll pass it on to all of you.
Okay. I'm trying to catch up with Carl Von Hone on our side because I know he works with his peers on the Dennis side as far as all those
Yeah,
projects.
and I know Carl's been out. My understanding from Kelly is that he's been out of the office for a while, so.
Yeah, I've seen his car around, so I know he's back. There'll be
Back,
more
back
time, so I'll catch up.
Yeah, and I did, and by the way, we also, Bobby read the letter, but we also sent a letter to the Yarmouth Selectmen that was similarly worded. And I did hear back from Mark Forrest. I will say that the Friends have been working with Mark and the Board of Selectmen very, very closely on the DHY articles. This is, for me, this is at least my second year working with the town selectmen with Friends of Bass River. So, we just wanted to let everybody know that we support this. I understand Yarmouth's discussion might have to be Yarmouth only, but for our sake, we hope it's a DY, at least a DY solution.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Our next item is public outreach. Dave, you still working on that? Or are we still waiting for the editors to chime in?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We have a postcard mailer that I discussed at the last meeting with Curly Printing, waiting for their input and for them to finalize the cost of the printing. They had given us a number for about 7,500 copies to print and mailing. It was about $4,500, but we're asking them, based on the committee's input, I believe the direction was to send it to all parcel owners in Yarmouth, not all registered voters or those who have attended town meeting previously. So we're waiting for updated numbers and for edits to the proposed mailing, which obviously needs to go out in early May. But I understand Mr. Curley has actually been out for a while as well. So that's where we are.
Okay, very good. Future meeting dates and agenda items. Does anybody have anything they would like to talk about or put on an agenda?
Hello. Hi, this is Mark Petruzzi here from, did any information come in from Barnstable? Last week, we said you were gonna have a meeting with them and find out what their plans are for the west side of Camp Street.
Jeff, I guess that's on you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I can probably address part of that. I don't know if it's the answer that the gentleman's looking for, but we did have a meeting with the town of Barnstable generally about how we can continue to work together. Their effort at this time is to go to the west. So your area would be to the east for them. They're thinking about areas relative to their wastewater treatment plant. So their primary effort is going to be to the west and expanding their system to the west. Although they do have your area in a phase one, so within the next 5 years, they'll be looking at that. But their primary efforts over the shorter term are to the west and not to the east. So that's the short answer. I would encourage the gentleman to reach out to Barnstable. The town engineer is very involved in the development of the plan, and continuing to express your interest in working with them, I think would be helpful, and I'll continue to keep it on our list for discussions with them as well.
Okay, if they do come up with something, we'll have to have an arrangement for how we pay them. I don't know how they determine sewer fees. If they do it by the water, obviously it'd be Yarmouth Water that we have services this area. So I'll give them a call. Thank you.
Okay. For the committee members, do you have any comments or ideas about what we should do? Say next meeting? Hello? I just lost everybody.
Sorry, I was muted. Is it possible to meet as in shadow of the selectmen, literally as often as they do the day before? Is there enough on our agenda to warrant that?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I believe, I'm just going from memory, but I think wastewater is on their agenda next week. But I'm not positive, so it probably wouldn't be a bad idea. My other thought is, you know, maybe, I would imagine we'd post a meeting with their meeting in case there's any comments or questions from the board of selectmen, but
Yeah,
at some point, I think we should hold a meeting with the public participation so that we can find out what everybody's thinking about this and answer their questions potentially.
sure. I notice you attend the selectmen's meetings. Maybe we should be doing that too. I watch it on TV as much as I can, but usually they get bogged down in an hour's worth of conversation about Gray's Beach, and then you wonder why you're hanging on there. Just a point of clarification. We're talking about mailing the postcard to voters or residential addresses? Because I don't really want to get 5 postcards in my house for the same thing.
I believe the direction we were given was to make sure that all property owners received a postcard at your last meeting. If that's incorrect,
No,
please
that's
correct us.
That's correct in our stats. Why? So we should mail everybody. Generally speaking, every address, whether they're voting or not, they're going to be impacted by this project. But it was, for a minute there, I thought I heard we were sending it to voters. And unless you call out the redundant addresses on that, you're going to be sending 5 postcards to each address. Plus, you're sending it disproportionately to people who live in one address, may feel one way about the sewer project, as opposed to the single voter across the street who feels the other way. I think it really should be attached to the tax-paying address. By the way, it's a postage versus printing cost issue. Printing is always the short side of that equation. Postage is always going to be 3 or 4 times more expensive when you add it all together.
I think Dave had it right, that it was to each parcel.
Yeah, hopefully, I agree.
I know Curly Direct Mail has always had the ability to whittle that down. So like you say, Sperry, you're not getting 5 postcards at the same address. You can get one that's sent per address, which everybody can read in that household. I would hope they would do that because, you know, getting 5 postcards would just leave people say, look at them wasting money on this already. We don't want to go there.
Yeah, good point.
So, okay. I guess we'll keep working on that.
And by the way, that's only if there's actually on the agenda, right? Or are we just sending general postcard regardless?
Yeah, obviously, if they decide to put nothing on the town meeting warrant, it would just be a mailer for the 2 ballot questions. So there wouldn't be a mailer for town meeting if there's no action. At least that's how I understand it. So we'd probably concentrate on that for the fall town meeting, and if that's where it all ends up going, which it sounds like it probably will.
Yes, that is the focus we have, is for the postcard for the ballot question on May 18th. We have not done anything recently on the town meeting article questions, believing it would be saved until the fall.
Mr. Chairman, I just looked at the Board of Selectmen's packet for tomorrow night, and according to the future agenda items, the DHY discussion is on their agenda for the 27th, the meeting of the 27th.
I think we might have lost Kurt.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't see Kurt on the window, on the screen.
I will go do some troubleshooting. Lee, I think you're vice chair, so I guess you're chair in the meantime.
Lee, you're on mute.
But you're also muted, so.
Rick, ask for a motion to adjourn.
No.
I don't know if there's anything else on the agenda. I don't have a copy in front of me.
Review of the past minute meetings.
Oh, geez. Oh, okay. Does anybody have any comments on,
I
Go
do,
ahead.
Tom Durkin.
go ahead, Tom.
Two very important points were brought up at the last meeting, but were not included in the minutes. One was the statement in regard to the Conservation Law Foundation. And as I understood it, Jeff, you mentioned that you had spoken to representatives of the Conservation Law Foundation, asking them what they thought the legal interpretation of significant progress on wastewater treatment would be. Their response was, we consider pipes in the ground as the significant progress towards wastewater. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I'd say I asked them what progress looked
Right.
like to them, and they said pipes in the ground. It was more of a general statement than it was like a legal interpretation.
No, I understand that, but we've been hearing from them since 2009. I've been frustrated for the past 12 years as to the progress of this project. And what I feel is, if that is their intention, not to sue us if we have pipes in the ground, but to sue us if we do not. Then we go to Dave Young, who clarified that and said, hey, if they sue us, there's no possibility of reduced interest payments. There's no grants, or no additional money can come into the town while we are under federal suit. Is that correct, David?
I believe that's correct. And if you saw the article on Mashpee in the paper this past week, and they're bringing their wastewater article to town meeting, that was one of the reasons they gave, because they are under suit and they don't want to be under a settlement agreement because they would lose their 0% interest loans.
Okay, so we're in very serious trouble, aren't we? Yet that is not included in the minutes of the meeting. I think it should be. And Kyle, will you see that it's added?
Yep.
Thank you very much. The second thing is a statement by Kurt, which I felt was most important, and that he said, we have a moral obligation, a humanitarian commitment to the fact that wastewater be treated in the town of Yarmouth so that we don't impose a health hazard to the residents. I feel also that that should be included in the minutes. Can you do that, Kyle?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any objection to those two additions to the minutes? Hearing none, I make a motion that we accept them past minute meetings.
Second,
Second.
second.
Do you want to take a vote, Lee?
Kurt's back, by the way.
Oh, hi, Kurt.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah. Okay, let's just do a roll call. Myself, I, Spiro,
Aye.
Tom Durkin,
Aye.
Tom Roach,
Aye.
Tom Barron,
Aye.
John DeLiso,
Aye.
George Perkins,
Aye.
Lee Rowley.
Aye.
Okay. I guess we're at the end. Like I said, the next meeting, I think we should start including some public time in it, and I'll put that together. Does anybody, I think we have an agenda item with the selectmen next Tuesday. I'm not sure if they've moved that or not, but we should post a meeting for that. I don't know if anybody thinks we need to meet before that. If not, let Kyle know so he can post it properly. We'll go from there. And if not, I guess maybe in a couple weeks, when we get some better answers from the select, we'll have something to do outreach with and hopefully have some information to answer the public's questions.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know, you might have been offline, but Jeff looked up the selectmen's agenda and they have DHY on for the 27th.
Oh, it's 3 weeks out. Okay. So maybe we could hold one before then, just to get some input from the public, and then include that in our comments to the Board of Selectmen for their meeting when we're spoke at the 27th. All right, how about we schedule a meeting for the 9th? Is that a holiday? What's Patriots Day?
The 19th is Patriots Day.
It is, okay. You want to do the 26th?
Yeah, you could do the 26th.
Yeah.
Okay, well, tentatively schedule a April 26th. If anybody has any questions, comments, or if the problem, let us all know. I'll accept a meeting to adjourn if nobody has anything else.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Spiro.
Much as I'd love to stay, aye.
All right, never mind. Spiro wants to do another 3-hour meeting. Tom Durkin. It's a motion to adjourn, Tom. You vote aye? Raise your hand. There we go. All right, Tom Roach,
Aye.
Tom Barron,
Aye.
Lee Rowley,
Aye.
George Perkins,
Aye.
John DeLiso.
Aye.
Thank you all again for your time, even those who I don't know who you are. I appreciate that you're tuning in and watching what we're doing.